There was a time in Nigeria when a promise was stronger than iron, stronger than chains, stronger than prisons. There were no written contracts, no lawyers, no signatures, yet kingdoms stood. Alliances lasted generations. Wars were prevented, not by armies but by blood. Not blood spilled in battle, but blood willingly offered in oath. Because once blood touched blood, your life no longer belonged to you alone. It belonged to the agreement. Before modern Nigeria existed, before borders, before centralized governments, there were kingdoms, clans, villages, and empires. Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Tiv, Nupe, Edo, Ibibio, and many more. And holding these societies together was not law enforcement. It was belief. Belief that the ancestors were watching. Belief that spirits punished betrayal. Belief that blood remembers. This belief gave birth to one of the strongest traditional systems ever practiced in Africa, the blood oath. A blood oath was a binding spiritual contract. Two people, two families, two communities, or even two kingdoms would agree on terms: peace, loyalty, trade, protection, or silence. Then, before elders, priests, and witnesses, blood would be drawn, sometimes from the finger, the arm, the tongue, or mixed with sacred items. The blood was shed, drunk, touched, or placed on sacred ground or objects. From that moment onward, the oath lived, and it lived longer than the people who made it. In traditional Nigerian belief, blood was life itself. Blood carried identity, lineage, destiny, ancestral connection. Words could lie, faces could smile and betray. But blood did not forget. Breaking a blood oath was believed to awaken ancestors, deities, the land itself, and once awakened, punishment was unavoidable. Blood oaths were used to end wars, seal peace treaties, unite kingdoms, protect borders, secure trade routes, bind royal families. Some kings trusted blood oaths more than soldiers because soldiers could defect, but blood oaths followed you home. Even kings were not exempt. If a ruler broke a blood oath, crops could fail, children could die, madness could strike the palace, the throne could collapse. To the people, these were not coincidences. They were consequences. Blood oaths were never done casually. They were overseen by priests, shrine custodians, elders, or spiritual authorities. These men and women were feared not because they carried weapons, but because they understood consequences. They warned participants clearly. Once you enter this oath, your children will inherit it. Your bloodline will answer for it. And still, people agreed. That's how powerful belief was. Breaking a blood oath was worse than committing murder. Punishments were believed to include sudden illness, madness, infertility, accidents, generational misfortune, unexplainable deaths. In some communities, the guilty person confessed without being accused, returned stolen land voluntarily, surrendered themselves to elders, not because they were caught, but because the oath began to work. Fear was not of people. Fear was of the unseen. Blood oaths worked because everyone believed Everyone feared the same consequences. Justice was spiritual, not negotiable. There were no loopholes. There was no appeal court. No delay. No corruption. Once blood sealed it, the agreement became alive. Today, we trust paper more than honor, signatures more than conscience, law more than belief. But once, kingdom stood on nothing but blood, trust, and fear of betrayal. And maybe the real question is not, were blood oaths too extreme? But this, what happens to a society when promises mean nothing anymore? If you enjoyed watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story. Thank you for watching.